So quite a few years back, we started doing like a single at 8 RPE prior to like lower RPE back off sets or higher rep back off sets. And that was a method that really caught on in the powerlifting world and kind of proliferated everywhere. But that's definitely not the only way to use singles in your training. And if you're not careful, that's probably not the best way either. If you think about what you're trying to accomplish, you're trying to accomplish specific skill practice, and that can take a number of different shapes. Think about what a single at 8 RPE is. It's a little heavier than an opener usually. It's something that's heavy enough for you to really push against, so you are developing some kind of high intensity output, but it's skill practice. And there are going to be times where that's appropriate, but there's also times where the skill practice that you need might be a little bit less than that, or it might be a bit more than that. So one thing that I've liked to do lately is to dial back the RPE and have multiple singles at 7 RPE. Now, this is super effective if you've got some way of measuring the velocity, whether that's a phone app or a stopwatch even, or you have something more fancy. But when you're doing, say, 5 singles at the same weight, some are going to be a little bit better, some are going to be a little bit worse. And you can really dial in, really pay attention to technique. Now, this isn't like gross big movement technique. This is the super fine details of technique. Things that may not quite be visible to somebody on the outside looking in. You know, oh, if I twist my hand just slightly this way, or to give you a real example, something that I've noticed, if I bring the bar down just a little bit lower on the bench, I notice that my singles are faster. I'm producing more force. So I learned that through doing multiple singles at 7 RPE, that the bar moves a little bit faster when I bench in this certain way. And then you start the process of transferring that to the heavier and heavier work. And just like learning technique at a lighter RPE, you can also extend that into learning technique at a heavier RPE as well. If you have some sort of technical breakdown that's happening when you get to very heavy weights, your second attempt, your third attempt, well, you have to present a technical challenge in order to expect improvement there. So we need to go a little bit heavier. If you're not seeing, this technical breakdown, you're not seeing this elbow shiver until you get to your second attempt, well, you're going to have to push the boundary a little bit and practice that in order to see improvement in that. Working at lower RPEs may not help because it's not something that you are necessarily conscious of. It's a technical breakdown that happens just as a result of outside forces being super, super high. So we have to practice in the range that we're trying to improve at. I actually really like using singles for things like SDE work and stuff like that. And I know that's a bit uncommon, but especially when it comes to movement mechanics, that's why I'm programming that movement to begin with. It is intended to reinforce something, and that something is a subjective experience of the athlete. So it's hard to say that there's rights and wrongs here. It just works or it doesn't. And if there's a certain movement that helps reinforce the right bar path in the bench press, then why wouldn't you want to push the intensity on that so that you're presenting a technical challenge? It's not exactly the same technical challenge as what you'll experience in the competition lift, but what you're trying to create with this is a certain subjective experience for the athlete, and that reinforces the pattern. So yeah, absolutely we'll use singles. We don't expect it to like build super strong muscles or something like that. It's a kind of skill practice, but it can be a really useful kind of skill practice. You can definitely overuse singles, and I think, if anything, powerlifters these days probably do. I'm a pretty firm believer in some kind of novelty effect being present in powerlifting training. And if you kind of do the same thing over and over and over and over, you get desensitized to it, whether that's a physical mechanistic kind of desensitization or not, I'm not sure. But it does seem to be the case that when we do the same thing over and over, it's less effective than it was in the beginning. And I have definitely seen this with singles, and if we take them out for a couple blocks, then the reintroduction is useful again. It gets the athlete's attention, we're focused, we're engaged, we're not just going through the motions. If you feel like you've kind of been flirting with that line a little bit and you need to get away from singles, most powerlifting training ought to be something other than that. Doing sets of 3, 4, 5, heck, you can even do 6 reps. There's a wide range of reps that you can do, and what's going to serve you best is going to depend a lot on athlete needs. Some people need to go really high reps, some people don't. It depends on the lift as well. You know, that I know we've talked on the RTS team a lot that high rep benching doesn't seem to do the same thing that high rep squatting would do. Same with high rep deadlifting. Each lift is its own kind of unique animal, and it needs to be dealt with in a certain way. But singles are this pretty universally useful rep range. It's just that if you overuse it, you've got to go somewhere, and it can be any number of other places. If you're just kind of dabbling with it for the first time, I would keep the singles on the lighter side, assuming you're comfortable with RPE. That's going to be a 7 RPE. It should be a little lighter than your opener.